Part 2. The Kula Rock. Chapter 18. The Kula Rock. My mother showed me a flat rock near the beach when the tide was high and just touched the rock. This was called the altar, or Papa Mohai, where the ku'ula is placed. A ku'ula was used for two purposes: for celebration by the chief of the village and the arrival of the royal family, and for the welfare of the people of the village. There was no monetary value received for getting the fish by using the ku'ula rock. To violate these purposes meant the penalty of death to the one who tried to use it for his own gain or to his loved ones. I asked my mother if the stone on the altar was a ku'ula, as I didn't see any fish. She explained that the rock I saw was just an ordinary rock which someone had left there. A real ku'ula was not left alone. It was taken by the keeper, either to his hut or to the cave. He guarded this ku'ula like you take care of your money. She told me it was very dangerous to keep a ku'ula because the rituals that went with it must be observed. If you failed, you would be punished, usually by death. So she advised me not to try and look for one. I will explain to you a case where this had happened. A young man exploring a cave that happened to be a burial cave. He found a small rock statue and thought it was a nice ordinary rock that meant nothing and he could take it home. He did not realize it was a ku'ula rock. He put the rock in his living room on the bookcase and forgot all about it. As time passed, he forgot everything. Then one day, as he was in the kitchen, he heard someone call him. He answered and walked into the living room where the voice came from, but saw no one. Then he called out, "Who wants me?" No one answered. He stepped into the bedroom and also saw no one. For a minute, he thought maybe he was hearing voices and thought it was from the living room. He stepped outside of the building and walked around the house, but still did not see anyone, so he came back into the house. That night, he woke up after midnight, got up, walked to the kitchen, opened the door, and stepped a few steps to the stone wall. He left the lantern inside the kitchen door. He stood at the wall and urinated as the house had no toilet facilities. The moon was out and there was a light haze. As he turned back to walk to the kitchen door, he stopped because he saw an object standing in the door. It was a small person about 4 feet high, wrapped in a white sheet. The face was black and it was hard to make out the features. For a minute, he stood looking at the object. He pinched his arm twice to see if he really was awake. He made a mistake as, instead of talking, he advanced to see whether the object would move or not. In one move, the object disappeared. He closed the door and walked to the bedroom, but did not wake his wife until the next morning. While she was making his breakfast, he told her about the incident of the night before. His wife was worried. She knew something was wrong in the house. She told him, "Since you brought that stone in this house, I have felt uneasy. I think the stone is a ku'ula rock." The husband said, "It's nothing but an ordinary rock. That rock is just like any rock. The only thing I like about it is that it looks like a small statue." Then he told his wife what had happened the day before. He told her he was sure he heard someone call him. His wife told him that they must go to see a kahuna. He asked, "Do you know any kahuna who would know about this?" She said, "I do not know any. All the old folks are dead. How about going to see the elder of the Mormon church? He is an old man, and maybe he can help us." They got into their little car and started for the next town about 10 miles away. The elder's little house was next to the church. They both walked to the house and were greeted by his wife, who asked them to come in. The elder was in the living room, listening to his radio. He stood up and said, "Come right in and sit right next to me." He looked at both of them and said, "I know something is troubling you. Whatever it is, let me ask the Lord for his blessing." So he prayed, and when he finished, he said, "Your trouble is that you have a ku'ula in your home." Then the husband explained where he got the ku'ula, and he had brought it home because it looked like a little statue. The elder said, "This ku'ula is lonesome and wants you to return it to where you found it. You are a very lucky fellow. A ku'ula is a dangerous weapon to have since you do not understand. Return it, and when you do, just say these words of appreciation. I am thankful to you. I am leaving you here because this is your home and you will be happy." So he left the ku'ula in the cave and came home. This story is the true one. I just want you to know what you are in for. There are two kinds of ku'ula rock. One is the meteorite rock that comes from outer space. You see falling stars at night. This meteorite falls from space and lands on Earth and burns for several days. The native would walk to find where the fire was and wait until the rock was cool before he tried to pick it. All he wanted to pick was one piece and return home. He knew that the meteorite rock had the power to attract fish in schools, such as ahole, or mackerel. This is all the power that this rock possessed. The owner, or the keeper of the rock, had the supernatural power to set a taboo system. Whoever stole the fish ku'ula was penalized by death to him or his loved ones. The second ku'ula is the ordinary porous rock that was hand-chiseled to the keeper's image. A blue rock was used to chisel the ku'ula porous rock. The owner of the ku'ula rock was usually the head of the family. The purpose of this ku'ula was to get more food for the family. It was used during the planting season in order to bring good harvesting, and during harvest time, the ku'ula was brought out again and placed on the altar. This time, a bounty of one of each kind of the crop harvested was placed at the altar to satisfy the ku'ula. The rest the family could use, and what was left was given to those who were in need. At night, the owner would pick up the ku'ula and return it to the house or the cave. In the family circle, the ritual was taught to the older son. If no son, then to the oldest daughter. When she married, her husband took over the responsibility. A ku'ula rock was never used for monetary reasons for the owner, but only for the family and those in need. In the process of getting this ku'ula rock, the head of the family usually called a family kahuna, whom they came to with their troubles, for advice. He received his training from his forefathers. He usually possessed the same supernatural power. That was the reason they listened to him. The first sign in the making of an ordinary rock to become a ku'ula rock, and the power to perform its duty or destiny by the kahuna or keeper, always came from his dream. In this dream, he is destined to go to a certain valley to pick a rock. It also states in the dream what the object will be. With this in his mind, he must chisel this rock with a blue rock by hand. As soon as the image on the rock is the same as in his dream, the work is done. He returns home and names the rock for the place from which he got it. This is how the ku'ula is named Ku'ula o Kalawa. This ku'ula rock is kept in the corner of the house, always facing east. Then the keeper looks to his granddaughter, the one that is his favorite. He casts the power and instructs her first child to be the soul of this man-made ku'ula. This child must be buried alive with the ku'ula. They are laid together and buried for 1 year. When unearthed, the soul of that child is in the ku'ula. This is the belief that the ku'ula rock has the supernatural power called mana by the Hawaiians. When the child and the ku'ula are buried, there is a celebration, and when they are unearthed, there is another celebration ceremony. This is the most enjoyable luau held. After the luau, the ku'ula is brought in the house and wrapped in red or yellow tapa cloth. The mother of the child always looks at the ku'ula, her child's spirit. The next step occurs when all the family gathered at the home of the keeper for him to demonstrate how he talks to the ku'ula. He brought out the ku'ula and laid it on the floor. They all sat around the ku'ula. The keeper sat in front. He looked at the ku'ula, concentrating on the eye of the image. In a few seconds, he was in a trance. His body began to shake a little, and his shoulders began to move from right to left. It seemed as if some force came into him. In a little while, he began to talk. He was communicating with the ku'ula through mental telepathy. It seemed as though he was asking questions and answering them at the same time. This is what the family saw, but he was actually talking to the ku'ula, and the ku'ula was answering. This was one of the mysteries that only the keeper knew. Whatever instructions were given, the keeper would accept and carry out. The purpose was to bring more food during planting and harvesting. If this was carried out, the village would share in the prosperity. But some keepers, knowing the power of the ku'ula, used the ku'ula for personal gain by extinction of the spirit or soul. This is what they call death by Hawaiian sickness without any cause. In these cases, even the doctor claimed one died a natural death. In that village, there was another kahuna who knew that a keeper had a good ku'ula for planting and harvesting. He was going to try and steal the ku'ula from him, but not in the sense that he would walk in his hut and take the ku'ula. He would use his power when the keeper was sleeping. As soon as he made contact with this ku'ula, he would walk into the house and use it to kill the owner by extinguishing his spirits. This is why a ku'ula is a dangerous weapon in the wrong hands, because it gives the owner the power. There are many rocks called ku'ula that decorate the hotel roadway. Their purpose is for a marker or a reminder for others to see. Ku'ula, if it is literally translated, means a red stand. The word ula means red. The color red to a kahuna is sacred. In speaking of ku'ula, it is a sacred stand. If you happen to wander down the roadway around the hotel, especially in the Kona district, you will see all kinds of ku'ula rocks, and some will have names written on them. Whatever the purpose the hotel people have in mind is the same that the natives had in the years gone by. The ku'ula you see is no different from the ku'ula the keeper or owner had. Sometimes the ku'ula is buried as there is no one to take care of it. It happens that this kind of ku'ula is unearthed and taken from a cave and sometimes found among other rocks. There are a few noticeable signs that the ku'ula may have to call your attention. When you notice this, the next step is to find someone who knows how to interpret it. There are very few Hawaiians who know how to, and if they do, they will not tell. This is a dangerous thing to do. Once you interpret the ku'ula, you probably will be the keeper. There are many restrictions, and if you fail them, the penalty is too great. It is easy to refuse not to do anything. The best bet is to return it to any cave and leave it there. The next best thing to do is to go to one of the Buddhist temples and see the priest. He can help and tell whether the stone is a ku'ula rock or not. If it is, the priest will bless it and put it away from harming anyone in the future. There are symptoms that a real ku'ula rock will cause, and you wonder if it is a coincidence or not. If you are planting, you pick up this rock and put it alongside the plant. You may or may not notice that this plant will not grow. The same kind of plant not far from the rock will grow beautifully. Sometimes you see a rock and it takes your fancy because it looks almost human. You clean it and place it in the yard for decoration. Some children happen to ask you about it, and you remark that it is a ku'ula rock and has supernatural powers. Just be careful. You spoke without knowing. Children are funny. One looks and makes a funny face, thinking it is a joke. The next thing that happens is that this child becomes sick and the parent takes it to the doctor. The result there is that there is nothing wrong. The child is all right. Then the parents want to know what happened or if he ate at your place. Your answer will be no. You know he made faces at the rock. This is why he has a red face. There are many more incidents where you will see the real ku'ula from the other rocks. This incident happened in the district of Kau, Hawaii. A Japanese woman owned a small store. The husband worked at the plantation, and her son worked for the county to repair roads. She loved to plant flowers and vegetables around the backyard. She always kept a wooden barrel at the back where the family urinated. The urine was mixed with water and sprayed over the plants, and they grew beautifully. She also was a barber and cut the hair of those who came to the store. I met her several times and stopped at the store to have a haircut. I saw a little shrine on the shelf. In this shrine, I saw a ku'ula rock and a small fresh bowl of rice in front of the ku'ula. I told her that the rock was in the wrong place. She told me the rock was Japanese now because he was eating rice. She said, I talked to him in Japanese. He cured me of my sickness when the doctor said he could not cure me. I asked her, did you go and see a Hawaiian kahuna? The answer was, no. I went to the Japanese temple, and a priest came here and blessed the store, and told me to keep the ku'ula in the house. I did, and I am well now. She told me her hands and feet were swollen and said, you can see now I am all right and well. I asked her how she came to get the ku'ula rock. She told me, my son found it while he was working on the road. I asked, where is your son today? She replied, he is at the back of the house, building a small chicken coop. He loves to raise chicks after they are hatched from an incubator. I asked if I could see him. She said I could after she finished my haircut. I was interested in knowing how he got this ku'ula. I paid the woman for my haircut and walked to the back to see the son. He was setting the coop near the fence. I asked him if he had a minute to spare. He told me to wait a few seconds until he was finished with the coop. When he was through, I said, I am interested to hear from you about the ku'ula rock you got on the road while you were working. He sat down and began to tell me the exact story. One morning, after the tractor was removing the rocks from the road, he tried to shovel, but a rock wouldn't come out, so he got a pickaxe and dug around it. Then he tried to yank the rock away, but it wouldn't come. So he stopped and took a closer look. He thought it would come loose with the next try, so he lifted the axe high and came down with a heavy stroke. All it did was to chip off the top of the rock. He tried once more by using his pickaxe to yank the rock out. This time, the point of the pick was caught. As he pulled and yanked, he broke the rock, and he fell on the road. He stood up and picked up the loose piece of rock. To his amazement, the broken piece was no longer an ordinary rock. This piece looked like the shape of a human arm. He started to dig around the rest of the rock and finally got it out. It was a rock with the form of a human, and the broken piece of arm fit right in. He said he would take it home for his yard. All the men stood by and looked at the human form rock, but no one said a word. He wrapped the rock in the gunny sack and left it in the hollow of the tree trunk with his lunch. During lunch, one of the men told him that it must be a ku'ula rock, and if it was, he had better leave it as it was too dangerous. But he said it was only a rock and no harm would come to him. Another one of the men told him to see a kahuna, as he could tell whether it was a ku'ula rock or not. He replied, "I am going to leave it in the garden, and when I have time, I will see a kahuna." He continued, "That evening, when I came home, I took the ku'ula rock in the garden and left it with the plants. I did not tell anyone. During the weekend, when I had time, I would clean off the dirt and cement the arm to the body. After the second week, I did the job, and the ku'ula rock looked good to me. I was satisfied, so I left it between the plants. I wanted to make a concrete stool and place the ku'ula rock on it like a small statue and put it in the middle of the garden. It would look beautiful. This was my idea, but I did not get around to it. Then I noticed my mother's hands and feet were swollen. I told her to see the doctor. She did, but the medicine did not take effect. It did not dawn on me that it had something to do with the rock I brought home. My only idea was to beautify the garden. My mother went to see the Japanese priest at a nearby temple, and he told her that since the medicine did not do anything, there must be something wrong in the house. He said, "I am busy now, but I will be over to your place during the weekend." The son said, "The day he arrived, I was not home. This is what my mother told me. I met the priest at the door at the store. I invited him to come in, so he came into the living room and sat down. I got a bowl of tea and offered it to him. He sipped the tea and talked to me. My sister was home, so she kept the store while my mother took the priest around the house. He walked in every room of the house, including the store and the barber shop. He blessed as he walked. When that was over, he told my mother that there was nothing there and that the place was free from all evil. Then the priest and my mother walked in the garden. He then sensed that something was not right, and he told my mother that there was something there of Hawaiian origin that was causing her sickness, and he must find the object. Then my mother asked the priest what this object looked like. He said it was a small Hawaiian statue kept in an unclean place and asked if my mother had seen it. She said, "I did not notice a Hawaiian statue in the vegetable garden. All I did was to water the plants and sometimes pour on the urine mixed with water as a fertilizer." "That's nothing wrong," the priest said. "I know the answer. This statue is clean and wants to be kept in a clean surrounding." As they walked through the vegetable plants, they noticed a pile of rocks. The leaves had covered the rocks. They removed the leaves, and among the pile of rocks was resting the little ku'ula. The priest picked up the rock and told my mother to clean it and keep it in the house. The priest examined the rock and said, "If I can only communicate through mental telepathy, maybe I can give you the answer of the duties of this ku'ula rock. There is something about this rock. I can only feel and I cannot see. To me, it is a good omen. You take good care of this rock, and I can assure you, your trouble will be over." She took the rock into the house. While it was setting on the table, he gave a blessing of thanksgiving and left the store. The son told his mother, "I will make a small shrine and set the Ku'ula rock in it." The following week he did, and it looked like a natural setting for the Ku'ula. His mother said, "If Buddha has his rice in the morning, the Ku'ula rock will have his." He continued, "We did not give the rock any name and left it as is. If we did, it would complicate matters. This little Hawaiian statue became the main attraction in the store. To prove it, my mother said, 'Look at my hands and feet. They are normal now, thanks to the Ku'ula rock.'" There is another incident that happened on the island of Maui. I was there when I was distributing film for the Royal Film Company, a business I owned. I had a picture that was showing at one of the plantations. I came to the theater to see it and asked the doorman about the crowd. He told me it was a full house. This picture had to do with rocks almost similar to the Ku'ula rock. Whoever owned this rock seemed to have everything come his way. The owner was puzzled and did not believe it was the rock. There is more to this story. As I was standing outside the theater, an elderly Japanese man asked me if I believed the story about the rock. I told him that it might be true for whomever the story was written about, but that we had the same thing here in Hawaii. I told him what I knew of the Ku'ula rock. Then he asked me if I could help him, and I asked him in what way. He wanted me to find some kahuna who could cure his son, who was mentally unbalanced. I told him that I'd never done this kind of work, but after hearing his story, I might be able to direct him to someone that could help him. I told him I would come to his house the next day to hear his whole story. I went to his home in Makawao, Maui, and met his wife and his only son, who was mentally unbalanced. The wife prepared coffee for me, and we sat down to talk. He asked me to stay at his home for the night. Then I listened to his story. I am a fish dealer. My place of business is in Wailuku town. I travel to the different districts and buy fish from individual fishermen who want to sell their catch. I met a Hawaiian fisherman who always catches a lot of fish. One day I was at the beach and watched him catching a school of fish. I stood at the edge of the beach as he was bringing the fish in. He stepped in front of me, picked up one fish, and placed it on a rock. Then he walked past me to his wagon to unload the fish. I stood and looked at the fish on the flat rock. Next to the fish was a small rock statue. Then I turned and walked to his car to see what deal I could make for the catch he had brought in. He gave me a figure and I paid him. Then the Hawaiian returned to pick up his rock and walked back to the car. I asked about the rock, and at first the Hawaiian did not want to say. Then he said, "This is a ku'ula. All my catch is made with this ku'ula." The fish dealer told him he was interested in buying the rock. He said, "I am willing to pay you $500. If you are interested, let me know." So the Hawaiian said, "I will speak to my wife. If she says yes, I will let you know." The dealer said, "All the time I am buying fish from the Hawaiian, and if only I could get that rock, my future would be well rewarded." I asked him if he knew that the rock had a ritual that had to be performed, and to break one of the rituals meant death to the owner or his loved ones. He was not told of these things. He said, "Why do you ask? Because I never asked? All I see is that he got lots of fish, and only what I see I am interested in." One day, the fisherman called to see if I wanted to buy the ku'ula. He said it would cost me $500. I talked to my wife, and she agreed to buy it. The next day, I went to the bank and drew out the money. I went to his house and bought the rock. There was no receipt given. We agreed as gentlemen. I never asked what the duties were. He seemed to think I knew what to do, like when I make a catch, I must leave one fish as a bounty at the altar. He never told me, but I saw what he did. I was glad to get the rock, and he was happy to have the money. I came home and showed the rock to my wife. After the week was over, I took the family to the beach. I took the rock with me. I had the throw net at the back of the fish wagon. I walked the beach and scouted for a place to set the ku'ula on and scanned the ocean to see where the fish might be. I found the place and set the stone on it and waited to see the fish. In a second, I saw the fish swimming toward the ku'ula. I was amazed to see that an ordinary stone had such a force or power to lure the fish. I got my throw net ready and made one throw. The net was filled with fish. I had a hard time bringing the net together. My wife, seeing my predicament, brought a gunny sack and helped me pick the fish from the net. We both were surprised. We had 2 gunny sacks filled with fish. I picked up the ku'ula and threw it to the back of the fish truck on one of the bags of fish we caught. We hurried to the fish market to unload the catch. My wife helped me bring the fish into the market while I was selling to the customers. Because it was fresh fish, the sale was made in no time. When it was over, I said to my wife, "One more catch like this, and I will have my money back, and the rest is all gravy." We were both happy with the results. The next week, we were out at another part of the beach and got the same results. As time went on, I got all that I paid, and still more, and this was wonderful. Then one day I got a report from the school that my son had lost his memory. I came to the school to see the teacher who told me. This morning he was all right. After lunch, I gave him a paper to fill in, answering some questions. All I saw was all kinds of marks such as this. Lots of fish sketches. I was puzzled and asked him, and he did not know what I was saying. This is something I do not understand. It is best to take him to the doctor. This I did. We arrived at the doctor's office, and I had to wait as he was busy with other patients. When he was ready, I took the boy in and he questioned him. He seemed to lose his thinking and repeated the same word over and over. He checked his health and nothing was wrong. The doctor said his mind was unbalanced and that we must keep him home and report to him every 3rd day. This I did, but began to worry and thought it must be something to do with the ku'ula rock. My wife was worried too and tried to look for help. She told me to return the ku'ula to the owner and never mind about the money. Only if someone knew how to cure our son, we would pay whatever they asked. So, both of them went to see the Hawaiian Fisherman. They met him as he was returning from the beach. He told the fisherman that he was in trouble, that his boy was mentally unbalanced, and he would return the ku'ula rock to him and did not want any money in return. He said, "Only if you can help to cure my son. You probably know how to cure." The fisherman listened and told them this sad story. "This ku'ula rock doesn't belong to me. It was left in the house. I think my grandfather owned this ku'ula. He forgot to bury it or give it to someone. I heard someone say that it was a fish ku'ula rock. I tried and caught lots of fish. When I brought in my catch, I always offered one fish to the ku'ula. You were watching me do this on the day you came and saw me bringing the fish in. Did you do exactly as I did? When you took the ku'ula rock, I thought you understood." The father replied, "I forgot to do this." The fisherman said, "So this is your trouble. Instead, you are being punished. Your boy is being punished. There is no way I can help you because I do not know anything about the Hawaiian art in curing this kind of matter. Did you see a doctor?" The father replied, "I did, and the boy is the same. I came here hoping maybe you could help me, or you can tell me who can." The fisherman said, "As I told you, I do not know. In this case, I cannot help you. I am sorry. Also, I do not want the Ku'ula rock." So, the father left the Hawaiian fisherman and came home with the Ku'ula rock. He said, "I told my wife it was my fault for being so greedy for money. Now I understand, but it is too late." So I tried to see other Hawaiians, but with no results. I was desperate when I looked at my son. Here was a young man, and on account of me, his future was lost forever. After I tried for help with no results, I was mad and took the Ku'ula rock and threw it into the ocean, thinking this would help my son. It did not help a bit. After listening to his story, I told him he should have found out all about the Ku'ula rock before he took it, and said to him, "I have two things you can do. Have you got a good Hawaiian friend that you have known well for a long time? Talk to him, and he will tell you who to see. If he is a true friend, he will do this. This ritual will be the Ho'oponopono seance. This is where you ask for forgiveness. You must listen to the person who does this and do what he tells you to do. I believe your boy will be well when he releases the taboo." The next thing, you go to your Japanese priest and ask him what he can do. Here is what I advise you. Never tell them you will pay if they cure your boy. Never bargain with money for him. After the boy is well, you can send them a Thanksgiving in a present from you and your wife. This is the only thing that I know. When you find someone to cure your boy, you must go in with a feeling that you are sorry this happened and you are ready to ask forgiveness. This is the only way to get help. It was getting late, and we all went to sleep. When I woke up, breakfast was ready. After breakfast, I asked them to take me to Wailuku town, where I had some business to attend to. The husband drove me to town, and during the trip in, he thanked me for advising him. I told him it was not much help, but whatever it was a step in the right direction. 3 months later, he wrote me. It was a hard thing to try to get someone who knew how to help, but I am glad I did, and the boy is well now. He thanked me again and told me that whenever I came to Maui, to stop at his home as long as I wanted. He wrote, "I cannot repay you for what you advised me to do. I only did what I knew to help, and that was all."